now and then to see what's going on. Okay, so today I was having this. No, actually, I was listening to a podcast, and it dawned on me that we should consult the the almighty AI to find out what it assumes it knows about um, NDI, and just to see what messages are being harvested by online content. Now, ChatGPT, as I understand it, stopped doing um, data harvesting up into a certain. I don't remember what year it was, but basically they like put a cap on it, right? Whereas a program like Google Bard is just live all the time, and so we could do a compare and contrast between those two services to find out which, um, to find out which is more accurate, if that's a possibility. But if people are going to these resources to learn things, which I am assuming they will eventually become fairly common, right? The issue is that bad data in, bad data out, right? It's the same thought process that we have when we're collecting details on tickets, for example, here in the support office. When we're collecting data on what people are submitting as questions that they have or problems that they're experiencing, we support agents and my team basically go through and try and collect as much useful data so that we can boil that down in 6 months and look back and say, hey, in August, we were having these issues, or these were the questions that were most common, or, whatever. And so we're trying to find common threads, for example, of issues that are appearing in firmwares across a range of products, but also across families of products. So 4K Family seems to have this updating problem, or has an issue with the Ethernet port or something. I don't know what it could be, but we're looking for common denominators that'll kind of help us hone and sharpen when we launch firmwares to be sure to add to the QA process, X, Y, and Z, because this is a thing that we have an issue with, or that it's a common issue. So Frank says that the cutoff for ChatGPT was September of 2021, which would be fascinating because what we were saying, that was only 2 years into my employment at this company, basically almost like 2.5. And what was being said in September of 2021 is not what is being said, or what will be said in September of 2023 by a long shot. And so I suspect that we're going to ask ChatGPT this question, or these questions about NDI, and we're going to get some very dated information, some very dated knowledge. And I'll go, and talk about the differences. But we should also check Google Bard and see what it's going to say, because I bet it might say something different. One of the reasons why this interests me is because a lot of the CRMs that are available now, and ways that we develop our knowledge databases, there are AI options to help enhance, or make the articles more accurate, or auto tagging, or whatever, right? So they're trying to leverage this AI stuff to make your knowledge database better, or hone it. And so, interesting. But if you're using ChatGPT, that's going to be a problem, because the speed in which data is constantly turning over is really fast. And so I don't think that integrating a technology that basically stopped in 2021 of learning is going to help us with a technology that's moving as fast as NDI. So it's an interesting idea. I will log into my ChatGPT platform here. I believe I'm using just my BirdDog account for this BirdDog stuff. So let's jump in there. But then I'm also going to open up Bard, and that is going to be on the, let's switch accounts here so that I'm not asking questions on like personal email accounts. Okay, sorry, I could take that stand down, I guess. Okay, so here we go. Try Google Bard. Let's try it. Bard isn't supported for this account. Why? Okay, so I'm going to have to use a personal account, I guess. Well, that's fun. All right. Let's see. I want to start a new chat. Confirm. All right. Now, I'm going to jump into vMix. And let's just, oh, I should move that too. Sorry, let me figure this out here because I wasn't really thinking through how we were going to share all of this. So we're going to layer this, and I'm going to move number 2. All right. This is good. Okay, cool. Okay, so that's Bard. Let's start with ChatGPT because I think that will be an interesting discovery. All right. So the point of all this is that we're going to try and find out what information is available out there that ChatGPT can help us with. And, we have an option between 3.5, our most compatible models, great for tasks and creating creativity. What? Oh, you gotta pay for that one. So let's ask it a pretty basic question. If you have questions that you want me to like navigate through here, feel free to throw those in the chat as well. So let's just ask this. Explain to me the steps involved to set up a proper NDI, a PTZ NDI network. This should be fun. Setting up a proper pan-tilt zoom NDI network involves several steps to ensure the PTZ cameras are integrated. The network okay. I thought I was going to read this, but evidently not. So we'll wait for it to be done here. Oh, this is good. This is more than I thought we were going to get. Ooh, all right. So here we go. Setting up a proper pan-tilt zoom NDI network involves several steps to ensure that the cameras are integrated with the network environment that use the NDI technology for video and audio. NDI is a protocol developed by NewTek. It's transmitting and receiving high-quality videos, audios, and metadata over standard Ethernet. Okay, so far, we're batting 1,000. PTZ cameras. Let me get rid of this because this is right in the way. What? There we go. Okay. PTZ cameras. I'm sharing this, right? Oh, and the little thing is right over my face. I really appreciate that. Hey, scan that QR code, everybody. Okay, that's why I don't have my face in this corner. Okay, so PTZ cameras. Choose a PTZ camera that supports NDI as well as other required features like pan-tilt zoom for appropriate resolution. Network switch. Invest in a high-quality managed network switch with sufficient ports and capabilities to handle the data traffic. I am very surprised that is what that says. Ethernet capabilities, a good quality Ethernet cable, Ethernet cables, good quality Ethernet cables to connect your camera, switch, and other network devices. Computer. You'll need a computer with NDI-capable software to receive and manage the NDI streams. So far, we're okay. I don't mind this at all. Network planning. Design your network topography. Consider the number of PTZ cameras, their placement, and the locations that you'll be receiving the NDI streams. Configure IP addresses. Assign static IPs. Oh no. To your PTZ cameras and other network devices to ensure consistent connectivity. So this now we're fighting because I definitely disagree. Obviously, you would all know that by now from hanging out with me. So all right, strike one. Physically mount the cameras to your locations, network switch with Ethernet cables, configure the PTZ cameras using your static IP addresses. So that's the same thing as before. Configure the switch. Log in to manage switch, the network interface, create VLANs if necessary to segregate different types of the traffic. Configure the QoS settings to prioritize NDI traffic for smoother transitions. Actually, the rule there is turn off QoS. So strike two, actually, because that's a big deal. So you shouldn't be running QoS on the VLAN that you're running NDI. That's actually fairly well documented from NewTek. Configure NDI settings. On each PTZ camera, access the camera's interface, enable NDI, and configure parameters for each resolution stream. That's true if you're buying non-BirdDog cameras and you're buying the NDI module for like your Sony or your Panasonic. You do need to enable it, which usually means purchase in addition. But not with BirdDog. We include NDI in all of our stuff. Full NDI too, which is that's why you're buying the camera typically. Make sure the NDI streams have unique names to avoid conflicts on the network. I agree. Setting and receiving software. Ooh, install NDI compatible software like NDI Studio Mod or OBS. Oh, get that out of there. I mean, it is, but yuck. Or vMix. Very cool. Also, you could use Wirecaster to a few other things too, right? Configure the software to receive and display the NDI streams from your PTZ cameras. If needed, set up scene configurations, transitions, overlays. Yeah, okay, that's more about like producing the show. It's not really about NDI setup. Test the NDI setup by streaming video and audio from the cameras you're receiving. Monitor the quality of the streams, paying attention to factors like latency and video-audio synchronization. Adjust the camera settings, network configs, software settings as needed to optimize performance. Consider implementing redundancy for critical components like the network switch and receiving computers. Have backup solutions in places. I mean, that's just good network practice in general, is to have backup and redundancy, but that costs money, so you may not have that option. Implement appropriate security measures such as firewalls to protect the NDI network from unauthorized access. Well, yeah, okay. Maintenance and monitoring. Regularly update firmware for cameras. Ooh. Network devices and software to ensure security and performance. Monitor the network for system health and identify. So here's what we kind of learned here about this is what we learned is that in 2021, really the thing that I staunchly stand against is assigning static IP addresses to all your cameras so that you can ensure connectivity. That's not a great way to do that. And I would be curious if we take the exact same question and we throw it in Bard. Let's find out if there's anything else to discover. Sure. Now, the cool thing with Google Bard that ChatGPT doesn't offer is there are multiple drafts of the same answer. And so if you're finding one unintelligible or you want to regenerate other drafts, you can pick. So that's pretty cool. Okay, so same question, but in Bard. Hey, plan. Okay, sure. Here are some steps that involve setting up a proper NDI network for PTZ control. Plan your network. This includes determining the number of cameras that you'll be using, location, and types of network. That sounds familiar. Choose the right NDI PTZ camera. There are many different types of PTZ NDI cameras available, so it's important to choose the right one for your needs. Consider factors like resolution, frame rate, zoom, pan-tilt zoom capabilities. Okay, cool. Configure your network switch. Your network switch needs to be configured to support NDI multicast traffic. What? That's interesting. This can be done by enabling IGMP snooping and setting up a multicast range. Wow. Google Bard, you went right to multicast, like right out of the gates? Interesting. Connect your cameras to the network. Each camera should be connected to the network switch using an Ethernet cable. Okay, so they don't say anything about static IP addresses here. It just says you should be connected to the network switch. Configure your cameras. Each camera should be configured to output NDI audio. This can be done in the camera settings menu. Wow, that's a very broad statement. That's very, very broad. Test your network. Once your network is set up, it should be able to test it that it's working properly. You can do this by connecting a computer to the network and using an NDI receiver to view that should say like video or studio monitor, just to kind of give a reference. But here's some additional tips. Use dedicated network for NDI traffic. Thumbs up. Love that. This will help ensure that the NDI video will not be affected by other network traffic. Yes, also known as a VLAN. Use a high-quality network switch. A good network switch will help you ensure that you can ensure that the NDI video will be delivered with minimum latency and jitter. Position your cameras carefully. The placement of your camera will affect the quality of the NDI video. Make sure that the cameras have a clear view of the area that you want to capture, and keep your cameras up to date. The firmware on your cameras will need to be updated to support NDI. I hope that helps. That is really surprisingly good. I mean, for a machine, that's pretty good compared to ChatGPT as well, by the way. Okay, so then the next question. Well, hang on. Let me jump back to the chat real quick because I'm not even watching you guys over there. What's going on, Live Sports? Good morning. Hey, what's going on, Lakey? By the way, September 21st was the current cutoff for ChatGPT data. Static IP is the devil. What's going on, Michael? I asked Bard, what do you do about the BirdDog X120? And most of the info was basically the ad. However, it did say that in the pros and cons section, some users have reported issues with auto tracking features. Who are these users? I have no idea. Because there are no users with X120s right now. So maybe we should be careful about... Oh, actually, hang on. Correction. You should be careful about what you believe on the internet. Some of it might be lies. Maybe it went to like the B&H website and somebody put that up there like as a generic to get clicks and likes. I don't know. But yeah, weird. So the next question then, remember, with that caveat of be careful what you read online. The next question I have for Bard is, should I... Whoops. Sorry, everybody. Wrong computer. Should I use static or DHCP configuration? Whoops. For my NDI network. All right, moment of truth, y'all. Why can't I type? Okay, there we go. Sorry, I'm kind of excited. I'm nervous about this, but here we go. I really hope that this says, per BirdDog John. Whether you should use DHCP or static configuration, it depends on your specific network needs. Static IP addresses are assigned to devices manually. Do not change unless you manually change them. This can be useful for the devices that need to be accessible in the network. We know what that is. However, it can be more time-consuming and error-prone to configure static IP addresses on all your devices. I like that. That's good. That's great. I'm glad you showed the big problem with static is the people element. And it's like, well, I won't screw it up. It's like, no, not you, but everyone else seems to screw it up. So I'm sure you'll get it right, but everyone else seems to screw it up, which is why we say what we say about this. DHCP are assigned automatically with the server. This can be more convenient than static IP addresses, but it can also lead to problems if the DHCP server is not configured correctly. True. And if there's a conflict between two devices that you're trying to use the same IP address. Well, that only happens if you're going in and monkeying around with IP addresses. And everybody knows what I'm about to say. How does this get fixed? How do we not have static IP? How do we not have IP conflicts on a DHCP network? The DHCP reservation list. Inform the DHCP that you want that MAC address to always have the same IP, and you won't have DHCP IP conflicts. But the minute you go in and you start editing individual devices to join a network that you don't have full control over and you're assigning IP addresses to it, there is the human error element that will be at play. So I lovingly say to you, don't use static IP networks. Here are some additional... For PTZ networks, NDI networks, it's generally recommended that you use a static IP address for your cameras. This will ensure the cameras are always found on the network and that they do not experience any disruptions of the video streams. The other devices on the network, such as computers and switches, can use DHCP. So I disagree with Bard on this, obviously. If you want to assign static IP addresses to your cameras, use the reservation list. And maybe we'll follow up with Bard. Here are some additional factors to consider. The number of devices on your network, the complexity of your network, and the level of technical expertise. I mean, those are all valid points, by the way. Ultimately, the best way to decide whether to use static or DHCP addresses is for your NDI network is to weigh the pros and cons of each option and then choose the one that best specifies. So the question then Um, the the question I have here is, am I teaching Bard anything by doing like a follow up? Right. Anyway, we still haven't done enough online, evidently, to teach Google that the DHCP reservation list is a far more intuitive way than to statically assign your cameras an IP. I have had conversations this week, phone conversations with installers who have gone this long in the industry and have never heard the conversation about why you shouldn't use static IP addresses. And I've been preaching this for, I don't know, at least 3 years at this point, where I got the confidence to say it out loud, to say the thing out loud. I believe this for a very long time, that you should let the network do the network thing and let the device do the device thing and stop making the device do the network thing. But I have, I think, gotten the confidence to start saying it out loud only 2 or 3 years ago. And so if I'm the one that's leading the charge, I'm probably not going to change the Google mind. But the just in terms of network practice, let alone it working better with NDI overall, but like best network practice is to use the DHCP reservation list and stop individually changing each device, because there's a major problem with that, and that's you. The person error, the ability that we tend to screw things up when we are doing that much customization. If you need to customize it that much, you need to do it all in a centralized location. And the way to do that is on the reservation list, where you can discover the MAC address and assign an IP address. Or in Unify, you go to the device and you say set fixed IP, right? Or on a sophisticated layer 2, layer 3 router, you'd go into the DHCP and say reserve this MAC address with this IP. That's all you need to do. That way it means you can really only screw it up in one place. Oh, and by the way, if you mess up the IP information on an individual device, you basically have to factory reset and start all over again. And in some instances, if you like put the wrong gateway in, for example, you'll disappear the device. It'll need to come to my guys to get you set straight. And so there's this high risk where if we screw it up at the node end, at the device endpoint, that's going to have major issues. But if you screw it up on the DHCP, you can just log in and change it there, and it doesn't affect the device at all. You know, so there's so many reasons why I wish people would just simplify their network. And if you're going to get into the AV over IP game, this is my speech for today. If you're going to get into this AV over IP, then you need to understand networks. You need to understand IP before you start doing the AV stuff. And that's a shout out to the guys who have been in the broadcast industry for 30 years and are seeing this NDI thing coming up as a valid way that people can transport data around the world, live video in this instance. You need to understand the fundamentals of IP before you really start installing AV over IP. And that's not to discourage you from getting into it. Matter of fact, it's the opposite. It's that you will do way more business if you do this and do this correctly. And my advocacy is don't do static IP addresses, because you're setting yourself up for service calls, but you're setting your client up for just ultimate frustration when they interact with NDI. And that's not what you want. That's not what we want. We want them to have a great experience. And to do that is you need to make sure that everything is managed in a central location. So there you go. Okay, well, that's an interesting discovery with ChatGPT versus Bard. It was just updated. See the update? Does it re-ask my question? Oh, no, it's just what's new. What if I say other drafts? Draft number 3 includes on a few factors, stability. Static IP addresses are more reliable than DHCP? False. Static IP addresses are easier to troubleshoot? False. Static IP addresses can be more secure than DHCP? False. They don't have to be. On the surface, if you know nothing about networking, that might be true. But you're in the AV over IP space. You should know something about it. And if you know the bare minimum, then you know that those statements are not true. Why would I choose static IP addressing for my NDI network over using the DHCP reservation list to centrally manage my IP ranges for my NDI network? There are a few reasons why you might choose static IP over a DHCP reservation list. Reliability. Static IP addresses are more reliable than a DHCP address because they're not subject to the same lease renewal process. Pardon? Did you miss the first part of that? The DHCP performance. Static IP addresses can improve your performance by reducing the amount of time the device spends searching for IP addresses. Really? Really? You genuinely think that performance, it's faster to use static than a DHCP reservation list? I mean, static IP addresses can improve your security by making it difficult for unauthorized devices to access your network. Yeah, maybe. But I think that's a potato situation because like you can secure your network. You turn off the ports that you're not using on the switch. You know, it's a VLAN. There are lots of basic things you can do that static IP or DHCP doesn't change in terms of like, anyway. Ease of management. Static IP addresses can be easier to manage than DHCP reservations, especially on a large net. Okay. I don't think Google Bard understands how a DHCP reservation list works. Complexity. Static IP addressing can be more complex than configuring the DHCP. This is because you need to manually assign each IP. Static IP addressing can be more expensive, as you may need to purchase additional licenses for your DHCP server. Okay. This I am not in agreement with this article, with this rendition of I disagree. Shocking, a managed network requires management and is subject to errors by management. I've been preaching death to static IP since 2000. Attaboy. Yeah, I'm older. What? We're getting preachy enough that we're going to need a band and a choir. It's true. DHCP server settings are essentially part of network documentation. Bard delivering classic Microsoft quality. Yeah. Some of the things I completely disagree with is like the reliability aspect. Because especially with the NDI conversation, it doesn't take into account packet flow. And so it seems to only care about the actual IP information and not about the performance of the NDI network in this scenario, which is, I think, a flaw, because you definitely should be considering, especially because it says performance right under it, and it says, oh, it can improve the performance because you don't have to spend time searching for IP addresses. It's like, no, if that's a problem, that's not... That's anyway, sorry. That's a crappy network, period. If your DHCP takes too long to assign an IP address to a device, that network is not suitable for NDI ever. Okay, it shouldn't take that long to where performance is a deciding factor, because I'm going to use static IP addresses because I don't want my devices to wait too long to DHCP server. Like, we're talking milliseconds here, folks. We're not talking about days. We're not talking about hours or minutes. We're talking about milliseconds that request should be fulfilled. And if it's not fulfilled, your network is crap. It's not suitable for NDI at all. I mean, flat out, man. So Bard, no, that's a 0 out of 10 in terms of a reason why this would be used. Security, it can improve security by making it more difficult. Again, if your network is that wide open and that dangerous, you need it to be more secure, you're not going to be relying on static IP addresses to lock it down. You're going to turn off the ports you're not using on your switch so people can't plug into it and access your network with an unauthorized machine. Or you could do like the classic 1990s where you limit the IP. You could only have a certain amount of IPs available, basically the amount that you need. But anyways, those are ancient methods. Ease of management. It can be easier to manage with them than DHCP reservations. How? All of the IP information that you need is listed in one centralized location, and you can change it there. A static IP scenario means that you have to go to every individual device. That's not easier, that's harder. Maybe it's easier for Bard. Anyways, it would be excessively time consuming to have a large network. I love this, though. Rather than having to renew the lease every time the device connects, no, the DHCP reservation list doesn't, it mitigates the release time. It always assigns the same IP address to the MAC address. The more and more I think about this, the more I'm convinced that Bard is talking about DHCP, but not reservation list, which is what I asked, man. So maybe I should change this again. Let's ask this question, but maybe ask a better question. I'm sorry. Right here. I'm going to quote this out. Let's see if we get a different response. No, we don't. Why would I choose static IP addressing? Yep, no. So then the question is, wow, it's really pushing the static idea. It really thinks that it's simpler, and maybe that's an interesting like discovery, that people genuinely think that going around and manually configuring every device and keeping that information in a spreadsheet is simpler. But like, I beg to differ. I mean, I will go toe to toe with people on that. I beg to differ. I do not think that it's simpler. I think that it's harder. And yeah, maybe that's just how my brain's wired. Maybe maybe Michael and I are barking up the wrong tree here, but I definitely know that in terms of like actually how it works, especially how like network management works, doing it on a regular basis and then teaching people how to do that. Static networks, it's what logically makes makes clear sense, but on a long-term management level, it is not friendly. It can get very complex, and it is always going to be that's funny. And it's always going to be prone to you screwing it up. Bard and ChatGPT know nothing. They're just fancy auto-complete engines. They leverage the internet for knowledge without respect to the quality or content. It's very interesting. But see, that's the thing, is like, this is the general content that's in the wild. And it's not good because it is confusing the it's confusing the market. And then when people are having major problems and the customers are getting mad that, this isn't working for me, and I want to swap this out for BNC like they're back in the 1970s. It's like, well, it's not working because the guy who installed it for you doesn't know networks, and he doesn't understand the difference between ease of use and how packets actually pass over networks, and why you need some sophistication. You don't need to understand the sophistication necessarily, but why you need some of it so that it can, run, so that it can run as you are expecting it to run. Cool stuff. Love it. Well, that's always fun. It's always fun to see what the interwebs are up to.